ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. I'm ready. Okay, Mr. Vladi Gama. And we go with e4. e4, e5. We have decided and we haven't faced e4, e5 that many times, but if you guys remember, we made the decision to play the 4-knight Scotch, which I advocate as a really good opening for beginners and intermediate players because it enables you to bring all of your pieces out, and it really enforces the ability to play with all of your pieces. It's not a gimmicky opening. It's an opening based on very sound principles. You open the center, and you develop quickly. And the 4-knight Scotch is the move d4 in this position. And it's also a pretty dangerous opening if black is not accurate. He takes d4. A lot of people... Okay, so bishop c5. Okay, bishop c5 is one of the multiple possibilities in the 4-knight Scotch. Now, white's got a couple of moves here, a couple of possible moves. One of them is to drop the knight back to b3, but the most principled move is to defend this knight with bishop e3. This also poses an immediate threat. We threaten to capture the knight on c6 and win the bishop on c5 because the queen is going to be hanging. Okay, and this is already an inaccuracy. Black is just conceding the tension in the center, giving us the two bishops, and giving us, a bigger share of the center castles. Now, how should we proceed in this position? What's our priority? Well, first of all, it's quite clear that we need to complete our development, and we need to do so pretty fast. But the thing is, I want to also preserve our two bishops, right? So we want to complete our development, but an even bigger priority right now is to keep the two bishop advantage. It's an open board. We want the two bishops, right? Now, bishop c5 might come to mind, but that just walks into d6. That helps black. So we retreat. Bishop e3. I'm anticipating rook e8. And after rook e8, we'll need to find a way to... Okay, not rook e8, h6. That kind of lets us off the hook. Now, this is a good situation to practice deciding where to castle. It's important to have that intuition. So, for example, I look at this position, and within a couple seconds, I have a very good sense of where I want to castle. I want to castle queenside, because the moment h6 is played, that's already a hook. In my mind, I'm seeing the potential of going g4, g5, and exploiting the hook. We also have the two bishops. We have a bigger share of the center. All of those things is going to make a situation with opposite side castling a lot more fun for us than for our opponent, because we just have better attacking and defensive capabilities. So we can start with queen d2, or we can start with f3, but definitely queen d2 is, I think, the most flexible way to begin. King h7, and we can play f3. We're not worried about knight g4 because of the simple bishop f4, and then we chase the knight away from g4 so we can castle. But the move f3 isn't only played to stop knight g4. It's also played in order to reinforce the e4 pawn and to prepare g4. Now, a lot of you might wonder what the difference is between h3 and f3. And that's exactly the difference. h3 doesn't support the e4 pawn. So f3 is kind of automatic. In the Sicilian, this is called the English attack setup, where you go f3, g4, and potentially h4. Now, we could also consider, if we're putting on our Russian school of chess hats, what move could we consider throwing in just as an improving move that you often see in these positions? We're not going to do it right now because it's unnecessary. Yeah, so king b1 is a good idea in many of these positions, and there's nothing wrong with it inherently. It's just that black has so little going for him on the queen side that I feel more inclined to just start the attack. Let's go g4. Knight e5. That's a good move. That's a very, very good move. Now, this is where we have to be a little bit creative. When you're attacking, you have to think outside the box rather than just making straightforward moves, that often lead to squandering the attack. So here's how I'm thinking about this. Well, we want to defend the pawn, or we don't want to give up f3. If we give up f3, our entire pawn structure collapses on the king side. Okay, so we can defend f3 in several different ways, but we want to find a way to defend that pawn while also contributing to the attack in some way. And if I phrase it that way, then you might come up with the move queen g2. And that's an excellent move, I think, because once we play g5, notice how the queen is going to be nicely positioned on the g-file, where it can partner up with the rook and exert tremendous pressure on g7. Does that make sense? So here we violate the rule which says you should do stuff with the least value piece because we want the queen here anyway. And now g5 is going to come with tremendous effect. He can take on f3, that's possible. Knight f3, queen f3, bishop g4 is possible, but in the ensuing position we're going to have two pieces for a rook, and as I'll explain after the game, the two pieces prevail in this case. Alright, knight g8, very passive. So we can play g5, as planned. But after g5, he might meet that with h5. So here I think it's worthwhile to be very patient and to complete our development with bishop e2. Now, what move does bishop e2 also prepare? What are we preparing with the move bishop e2? And I'm going to play the move in the interest of time. We're preparing f4, absolutely. Notice that I'm not just, closing my eyes and playing g5 when we first can. Because he's played this so passively, we can afford all of the niceties of the position. We can improve our position to the maximum before really stepping on the gas pedal, so to speak. But we will step on the gas pedal. It's just a question of being patient. Queen f6. And I think it's time to step on the gas pedal. We can do that in a couple of different ways. Now g5 makes a lot more sense because it hits the queen. Absolutely, we should start with g5. And we can follow up with the move f4. But I'm anticipating hg, in which case we're going to play bishop takes, and there will be hell to pay. Queen g6. Well, that's no good, because now notice that these are unforkable spots, so f4 is very likely to win at the very least a piece, but possibly even the queen. Okay, so I think a lot of people here would be tempted to take on c4. And this is where, you really have to demonstrate attention to detail. The first instinct, the first question you always ask yourself should be, can I play f5 anyway? And that's what I call the Sam Shanklin question, because Sam is a big fan of teaching students to do this, right? Why did we play f4? Well, we played it to play f5. And rather than automatically getting scared of a threat, we ask ourselves, can we play the move anyway? Well, what happens if he takes the bishop and attacks our queen? That seems scary. Well, it's not, because once we take his queen, that's actually going to be check. And that's the key detail. f5 wins the game. It actually wins the queen. The hilarious thing is the queen is trapped, and if bishop takes f5, we play e takes f5, and then if queen takes f5, we can certainly take the knight and be two pieces up, but what else can we do? What else do you guys see in that position? Yeah, you look at the alignment of the queen and the king, and you see the move bishop d3, which skewers. Pins the queen to the king. So the game is over. Now, the best thing that black can do here is actually to take on e3. And then after fg, to play f takes g6 and take the rook. But that's just a queen for a rook in a middle game, which is completely winning. This was an easy game. I mean, our opponent just played this too passively. But this is what I'm talking about. The four-night Scotch really allows you, in many cases, to practice a basic attacking techniques, which is incredibly valuable in terms of building a solid foundation. I mean, nothing I did here was remotely obscure, perhaps with the exception of queen g2. Okay, now not bishop takes c4 automatically, but bishop d3 winning the queen. But queen g2 is a very findable move. I think you would agree with me. If you know how to think about those positions, queen g2 should occur to you pretty naturally. Okay, now what should we take with? We can actually take with a pawn, that's the funny thing. And after knight takes e3, we can play queen e4 check. Let's do that. Knight takes e3, we can play queen e4 check, picking off the knight. Again, notice how I'm just not making automatic moves. I'm questioning everything. Rather than assuming that I can't take with a certain piece, I'm asking myself, well, what happens if I do? And that's how you really, start to notice tactical detail. You notice how much there is hiding behind the scenes in a lot of these positions. Rook e5. Well, we're a full queen up. I'm not even going to comment here. Let's play rook hg1, activate the rook, and then try to mate him down the g file. The other rook can come to f1, the knight can come to e4. Whoops, I mouse slipped. I guess he shouldn't give up. I mouse slipped rook e1. Well, fortunately, it's not the end of the world. Lol. That's hilarious. But now let's not mouse slip further, or else I'll give up the queen and lose. That is funny. I guess it pays off for him. All right, well, we're back to converting the position. Let's play g takes h6. Okay, but in all seriousness, what should we do here? In all seriousness, what should we do now? Okay, I'm worried I'm going to play queen e6 by accident. Yeah, queen c8 check, of course. And then we just start vacuuming up all the pawns. Doesn't even matter which ones we take first. Just take all of them. Take this one. Take this one. Defending h2 simultaneously. Go back to c7 and start taking more of them. Okay. And where should the knight go? Let's get this done. At some point, you know, you just got to go for his throat. Yeah, knight d6. Now, of course, this gives up h2, but after king c3, it's not hard to establish that the f7 pawn is indefensible. If he moves it, then we have knight f7 check winning the rook. So at some point, you just got to stop caring about pawns and just go for it. You know, just go for the win. Takes. Okay, knight g5 check makes the most sense to me, just getting the king out. All right. This is dragged on for way too long. Well, what should we do now? What's the nicest way to convert this? Well, queen g3 doesn't actually really do anything. You know, the move that I would play, I'm going to play a classy move. I'm going to play queen d8. The point is that this totally paralyzes him. The knight can't move, and the queen also protects the knight on g5. And I think in such positions, people forget to use their pawns. I've seen this so many times. When people convert these big material advantages, they forget to use their passed pawns. Just push the passer. The simplest winning technique in many such positions is just to make more queens, rather than to use the existing one. Just don't forget about that. We can close our eyes and push. The queen defends the knight. That's why we put it there. No, but I'm serious. That's an important idea. I think I've seen this with students. You know, they'll be up a queen for let's say a rook, and they'll have the possibility of just taking a bunch of pawns and then making more queens. Don't be afraid to do that. Now, what's the fastest mate gonna be? Who sees a nice, cute little mate? Queen takes g8, and then d8 equals queen. Very good. Boom. And we can even make a rook if we want it, but I think I might have auto queen on. Yeah, definitely. Definitely make a rook when you can, when it's mate. So, bishop b3. Now, does anybody know what the main move is for black here? And this is a classic example of the need to keep tension. A lot of 1500s kind of resort to releasing the tension by taking. But you know that the bishop on c5 is hanging. No, d5 is wrong, guys. I mentioned this during the game. d5 blunders a piece. You've got to identify undefended pieces. When there's an undefended piece that's being x-rayed, you have to be particularly attentive to that. And the move is bishop b6. Move is bishop b6. That's the main move. Getting the bishop onto a defended square. No, d6 is bad. This was played against me once. If black plays d6, you can still do this, and then black has... Ugh. Look at this. I had a game like this, actually. Believe it or not, when I was like 1300. Yeah, d6 is not the way. Okay, so bishop d4 and bishop d4. Castles. Now we preserve the bishop. And had black played rook e8, which to me is the most testing move. How should white continue here? What is the nicest way of defending e4? And there's a tactical subtlety that hides behind the correct move. So f3, again, creates a x-ray against an undefended piece. So you should immediately look at ways that black can try to get to the c4 pawn, and the move d5 is quite nasty here. So if you take it, you give up the bishop with check. The move is bishop d3. And you might say, well, this blocks the queen's access to d5, so black can go d5 anyway. But if you know a thing or two about tactics, you'll see that this is not advisable. He takes d5. And what this all ends with is a discovery on h7. This is a pretty straightforward concept. Okay, easy clap. h6 is a really bad move. I don't know what it is that our opponent is trying to prevent. Probably bishop g5. But black can't afford to make more weaknesses, and yet that's exactly what he did. King h7, another unnecessary move. Overly cautious. Maybe here he was worried about bishop takes h6, but that is totally not a threat. We don't have any other pieces on the king side. Yeah, so we could have gone bishop d3 here. That's actually a very, very good move, which I didn't even see, to be honest. Thank you, Kudas. Yeah, bishop d3 to prepare a discovered check would be an excellent alternative. But I wanted to play in accordance with our general plan. Now, last thing I want to say here is that knight g4 is not always scary. I think a lot of people are worried about this move. But many times, no, black should just play d6. I mean, black should play d6, bishop b6, and develop, rather than wasting more time. Knight g4 is not always scary. In this case, we can just play bishop f4. And then we can play f3 to chase the knight away, winning back the tempo that we lost, moving the bishop back to f4. Does that make sense? So sometimes knight g4 is scary, sometimes it isn't. But you should not automatically try to prevent it. Okay. So d6, f3, bishop b6. Well, Redstone asks, could black start pushing pawns queenside to counterattack? I mean, in general, that is the right approach, but look at how much faster we are. Black hasn't even begun. And it's not like when black plays b5, it's checkmate. And at this point, we're already basically checkmating black. And black has not even gotten the engine started on the queen side, so it's simply too slow. And black has nothing going for him. But yeah, the nicest move of the game was queen g2, I think. It gets the queen onto a square where it protects the pawn and prepares g5. There was one question about knight takes f3. And the important thing to realize, and I think a lot of people really misunderstand this, in sharp middle games, two pieces, particularly two bishops, are generally much better than the rook. So look at how many minors are going to be involved in the attack. And this rook on a8 is not good for anybody. White is completely winning here. So for instance, I don't even know what black should do. I mean, let's say black makes a neutral move, c6. Now we can play rook g1, threatening mate. And in case of rook g8, we can get our bishop out, threatening discover check, as we discussed previously. After king h8, there are multiple approaches to a position like this. One of them is to say, well, the knight on c3 isn't fulfilling its potential. Let's get it into the game. Let's go knight e2, knight g3, knight f5. Another approach, perhaps a little more superficial, is to play queen h3 and prepare various sacrifices. Bishop d4 is another excellent move. Although it doesn't really threaten anything. I mean, it's not like we're threatening to take the knight. But I do like bishop d4, and then maybe get the knight in via e2. Black, on the other hand, has, again, absolutely nothing going for him. I mean, black has no plans here. So remember that two pieces for a rook is not just equal material. You shouldn't think of it that way. It's an imbalance, and every imbalance needs to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. That means in certain positions, the rook can completely dominate the two pieces, and obviously vice versa, and that's important to understand. In the endgame, the rook often dominates the two pieces because the rook can trampoline from side to side and start picking off weak pawns. But in the middle game, the minor pieces are excellent attackers, and the rook is not a particularly good defender. Okay, hopefully that explanation made sense. Now, we decided on bishop b2. There are multiple moves here that are possible. You can play king b1 at some point. Bishop b2 prepares f4. That's the whole point. And then the pawns just rumble up the board with crushing effect. Queen f6 throws more oil onto the fire by allowing g5 with tempo. And after f4, the game is over. Okay, maybe h takes g5 was the last chance, but then bishop g5 and f4 still winning. Still crushing. Although black has one attempt in this position. Yeah, I saw this in the game. Just have a cool detail to show you guys. What should black do here? Black has a tricky defensive move. Because if you move the knight, then the game is over immediately after f5. Yeah, black goes f6. And does anybody see a really pretty response to this? Creative attackers should be able to see this move. What should white do? Anytime you have a bishop on g5, this is a common theme in general. No, guys, bishop f6 blunders the queen. Excellent, it's h4. f5 relinquishes the defender and allows queen takes g5 with a queen trade. The move is h4. It's the same fishing pole idea, right? Because in the event of fg, you play h takes g5 and black is busted. After knight h6, the funny thing is you can take on e5, but you can also play bishop h5, trapping the queen. These sideways bishop moves are very easy to miss. Just make a note of that in your head. These sideways bishop moves can be easy to miss, but you should always pay attention to your opponent's queen. And this reminds me of this trick. Queen traps in the center are more common than people realize. In the French, there's a line. In the French, you could have a line where b6, this is famous, bishop d3, bishop b7. Now, you might notice that bishop g5 traps the queen. But then if you look a little bit more carefully, you might say, well, what's defending the bishop? Well, it's the knight. Black can take the knight, and black actually seems to win a piece. If you take the queen, then black takes our queen, and black emerges a piece up. But here there is a very famous move. Does anybody know what it is? Queen d2. Queen d2 is an amazing move. The queen is still trapped. Queen takes d4 exploits, and this exploits another tactical idea, bishop b5 check. So that's actually a cool trap to be aware of. Yeah, so it just shows that the queen can get trapped anywhere on the board. Yep. Okay,